7:37, it's Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mendes is on vacation. Johnny B sitting in for him, along with Jeff Malinoff and Ken Weaver in the newsroom. 615-737-9986. That's how you get in touch with us on the super text line. Also, we talk to you on the phone that way as well. So welcome into Nashville's Morning News. It's going to get hot. It's going to be up in the mid-90s today. We're going to the upper 90s over the weekend, possibly 100 degrees when it comes Monday. And that's why I wanted so much to get this gentleman on with us today, because what happens every time this happens, I guarantee you'll hear it today in the news. There'll be people coming out saying that global warming is real, that oceans are boiling, that we're going to be underwater. New York's going to be underwater. Florida's going to be underwater. And that's why I wanted to invite Frank Lasse, and I hope I'm getting your last name right. Frank, how are you doing this morning?
Very good. You got it just right. Yes, this is Frank Lasse with Truth in Energy and Climate. I'm a former state senator from Wisconsin.
Yes, sir.
And have been really working on this issue because we're being scammed, folks. We're being propagandized on purpose. Yes, it's going to be hot. We've been hot. And, you know, when I was a kid in Wisconsin, we had a lot of 90 and 100-degree days.
Oh, yeah.
We just had some this summer. We don't have as much. And, in fact, the evidence shows that our daily highs are not as high as they used to be. Yes, we're having some spikes in temperature, but that is what's actually happening is that we have a milder climate. The nighttime lows aren't as low, and our winters are more mild. Most people would say milder winters are a good thing. Our growing seasons are about a week longer.
Exactly.
Those are good things.
Exactly.
But we're told whenever there's any type of weather event, and they ignore any positive events, and that's most of the world is copacetic weather most of the time. But those are highlighted and told it's climate change, and that's just not true. The climate's always changed, and it always will.
Yes. Well, yes, and the thing is, like I've tried to point out to people, because this has been a real. I've been very passionate about this because it is definitely the government just trying to basically take over our lives, and they're trying to use this to scare people to change to what they want, and they're trying to inflict themselves on our freedoms. And that's why I like this climate fact check, this June 2024 edition, because they always try to say it's like like climate change causes wildfires to double. That's not true, is it?
No, it's not true at all. And in fact, and you can still find it. That's another problem that we have is Google is in on it. Google hides information and provides you with information that supports the climate change narrative, and they censor people who don't, or just make their things very difficult to find. The fact is, and this is NASA data, is worldwide fires are down about 20%. The Biden administration, this is another thing that's going on. The Biden administration has gone in they've changed the historical fire records to claim that there's no good United States fire data prior to 1983. Because the reason is 100 years ago, there was about 4 or 5 times more forest fires. And really, that's one of those scapegoats they love to use is, it's the climate. No, it's mismanagement.
Exactly.
On the West Coast, the lefties have gone nuts, and they're letting the forest go completely wild, and they're not harvesting the dead wood. They get they get more dead wood, and it dies, and then they have huge fires. Wisconsin and Tennessee may be doing a good job. I'm not sure about Tennessee, but I know Wisconsin, South Carolina, Texas, Idaho all have huge forest areas, and they all manage them well, and they rarely have any big fires.
Well, and
so it's about management.
Well, and the thing is, they tried to pass it off as that global warming just spontaneously causes these fires. It doesn't. It's either lightning, or it could be someone that has built a fire when they're not supposed to. It's not global warming that's automatically causing these wildfires to double.
No. So, some of your listeners might remember Smokey the Bear.
Yes.
People cause forest fires. That's fact. They say that 8 out of 10, the experts say 8 out of 10 forest fires are caused by people, by throwing cigarettes out the window. People don't do that so much anymore. But fires and other things. Those are examples that they use to draw and make us afraid because they want to drive some very expensive, bad for America, bad for your freedom, and expensive energy and food policy. They're also using climate now to attack our food supply on purpose. And scientifically, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever for us to attempt to manage methane or nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxides for fertilizers, nitrogen fertilizers. And they're doing this to attack our food supply too. They're out to control us long term, folks. And there's no good purpose in it. We can't control the climate. And even if what they said was true, even if there was a climate problem, China and India, with 2.8 billion people between the two of them, are building hundreds and hundreds, not just a couple hundred, hundreds and hundreds of coal plants, and they plan on building hundreds and hundreds more because they have literally a billion people between the two of them that need a lot more energy and reliable full-time energy. So, but what they're telling us is not true. And virtually all the indicators across the world are things are getting better. There are less tornadoes in the United States, not more. Hurricanes, there's no real trend at all. You can go down the list. Polar bears, there's more than ever. You just go down the list, and really they're lying to us on a regular basis.
Yeah, they really are. And I'm going to ask you more about the polar bear situation because they are thriving. It's 7:44, talking to Frank Lasse. He, of course, is talking to us about global warming and how we're being hoodwinked by the media and by the Democrat Party. We'll have more questions with him coming up. But right now, let's check the roads with my buddy Jack Womack, Super Talk 99.7. Let's check the roads. Thank you, Jack. Looking forward to today, a high of 95, and it's going to get warmer. We're going to be in the upper 90s through the weekend. Monday, we could hit 100. That's going to bring out the global warming fanatics. It's 74 degrees right now. Sunny skies on Nashville's Music Row. It is Nashville's Morning News. Johnny B sitting in for Dan Mandis. Talking to Frank Lasse. He, of course, was a state senator. And in Governor Scott Walker's administration, that was quite a moment, wasn't it, during those days?
Oh, it sure was. I was there in Act 10 when we had 20, 30,000 people come and several thousand occupy a Capitol for months.
I remember.
And scream at us and.
I think
into a recession, and the government workers didn't want to take a bit of a haircut too. They demanded raises when everybody else was losing their job and getting pay cuts. It just was ridiculous. It's this myopic views. We are polar bears. You mentioned that, and that's covered in our monthly fact check. And you can find that at truthandenergyandclimate.com. Is that they're growing in numbers, and that's really largely because they became protected in the 70s, and actually there's so many of them now. The Inuits are petitioning the Canadian government to lift their protections so they can hunt some of them because they're becoming a nuisance. But their estimates, realistic estimates of 25 to 30,000 of them now. They were down about 5,000 back in the 1970s. And their habitat is fine. And they've been around for literally millions of years, if not hundreds of millions of years, and it has been a lot warmer in the past. One of those other climate lies. It's never been warmer in the past. Well, no, actually, we're in a cooling period, and we've been cooling and cooling. We're in an interglacial period, and the world is going to go back into a glacier if it follows the trend of the last million years. And we have about 100,000 to 120,000 years of really glacial times where the glacier even comes all the way down and nips at Tennessee. It covers Wisconsin by a mile of ice. This is going to return, folks, because of the way the Earth travels around the sun and other complicated things. We should fear the cold and welcome the warmth. And what they're doing is to dry. And there's more lies on the energy side. Is wind and solar are not cheaper.
No.
And your electric rates are going to continue to climb, and they are going to. If you let these people continue in power, they are going to triple our electric rates at a minimum. And it won't do any good, and it won't change the weather. It won't change the temperature.
Nope.
It is lost money, and we are borrowing money at the federal level to drive up our electric rates. And you can't run a full-time electric grid on wind and solar because they're part-time. You can't control them. It's when the wind blows and the sun shines.
Exactly.
And the question of what provides energy, electricity, on a dark, windless night, or even the first hour in the morning when solar produces no energy or little energy, when the wind's not blowing. You can't do it. And then we're borrowing money, adding to our $35 trillion debt to buy it from China,
Exactly.
who is growing their military and plans on taking over the world and controlling all of us.
Oh, yeah. And then I know you watched, I know you had to watch last night the Big Boy press conference. What's your I know this is
my goodness,
off the topic we're talking about, but what do you think's going to happen in this election?
The Democrats have a real problem. I don't know if they're going to swap, if they're able to swap Joe. From my understanding is Biden must quit himself, and it doesn't sound like he wants to. Joe Biden wants to stay in the White House and keep running things. It's really interesting. But they desperately want to win. And it doesn't matter. Whoever they put up, if they do successfully get rid of Joe Biden, is going to give us the same woke leftist policies we have now. Why are men and women's locker rooms? Why are we being flooded by illegals and paying for them?
Yes.
Why are they driving up our energy prices and hurting our economy in so many different ways? Why are you paying so much more for groceries than you were 3 years ago? And they're lying to us about inflation as well.
Exactly.
If you've ever had your groceries delivered over the last few years, go back and order exactly the same things and report on it. Because it isn't 10 or 15 or 20%. It's a lot more than that.
Oh, yeah. And we also have a lot more illegal immigrants in this country than they're reporting. I mean, I think the number is far bigger.
Well, there's 10 million that we know of.
Yes.
There's probably double or triple that. And they're registering them to vote, folks.
Oh, that's all.
This is the other thing that should scare your socks off. They're registering them to vote.
Well, that's the whole reason for this.
Well, yeah, they flood the country and they have permanent power to do whatever they want to us. And they're giving them all these benefits to buy them off with money we don't have. It's going to crash our economy, folks.
Oh, yeah.
We need to have this election go the other way in a great big way, and it has to be too big to rig because they're going to work to rig this and get all these illegals to vote for Biden and others.
Oh, yeah.
And this is to drive terrible controlling power, their power grab. And that's why they like CO2 and the climate change issue and to get people believing and fearing it, because it's a method to control everything we do.
Exactly.
And there's C40 cities. You can check it out online. You have to poke around. They may have hit it because once they're outed. But there are 100 cities around the world, 14 in the United States. And what they have, their aspirational goals. This tells you where we're headed, what they want to do. Only 3 clothes outfit purchases a year. Only fly in an airplane once every 4 years. No personal cars. You be as close to a vegan as you can possibly be. These are the plans that these climate scamsters have for all of us, and they're going to force it on us.
Oh, yes.
They are going to force it. They're already forcing EVs, or trying to, and we're rebelling because, EVs are actually kind of stupid. I think they're cool cars.
I agree with you.
But hybrids make a lot of sense. You get great gas mileage. They have a small battery. Toyota says they can make 60 to 90 hybrids from one EV.
Exactly.
We don't have the minerals in the world to make all those batteries, make grid batteries true like the scamsters are telling us. And China processes 80 to 100% of virtually all of that stuff. So we're going to load, we just send money to China.
And that'd be great. Yeah, a really great idea to give money to our biggest enemy and one of the worst
polluters in the world.
Yes.
They're absolutely the worst polluters.
Yes.
China releases more pollution and CO2. CO2 is not a pollution. It makes plants grow. It's Miracle-Gro in the air. But they release more pollution than all industrial nations combined in the world, and they're getting worse, not better.
Oh, yeah, and not to mention the human, how they treat their own citizens, the human sacrifice they make over there as well. They're a brutal regime, and I don't know why we're doing business with China. We shouldn't be.
They have implemented, and this is where we're headed if we don't change course, is they have implemented facial recognition in many of their cities. They have hundreds of millions of people, not their whole country yet,
right,
but hundreds of millions of people through their phone, facial recognition, ID, everything. And there's some great news stories and shows that show this. But one of the vignettes to help you get it is a guy was walking home in the middle of the night drunk. The facial recognition recognized him, and they debited his account. When your account's debited, you can't buy things. You can't travel.
Right.
If it's bad enough, you can't even go on the Internet or play a video game. I mean, they have total control over you. You can't borrow money. Or if they let you borrow money, you have to pay higher prices for it. So they have total. So they lowered his score, and some good citizens stopped by and picked him up, and they raised his score because he was a good citizen. If you criticize the communist regime, they have in restaurants, stores, on the street. If you criticize the communist regime, they record your voice. They have AI. They downgrade your scores.
Well, it sounds like we could go that way here easily.
Well, in Europe, in London, they're installing facial recognition cameras all across the state, across the city, in order to do things like this. And they have patriots there who are going up and knocking them down and destroying them. But it's a battle going on in London. Oxford, and this is in England, for goodness sakes. They're going to go further this way because the Labour government just came in with large majorities. They're going to be even nutty. But pay attention to them, because they say they're going to net zero in 6 years, by 2030. It's going to be wildly expensive, and their economy is going to tank.
And it's all thanks to us believing in global warming. Frank Lasse, I appreciate you joining us, President of Truth in Energy and Climate and former Wisconsin Senator. It has been a joy having you on with us, and keep up the good work. And how can they read some of your works and some of the things you're talking about?
Well, I have a new book out, Climate and Energy Lies. It describes in detail all the things that I just talked about, with references and sources, hundreds of graphs, so it helps you understand what they're doing and the truth of it all. You can go to Truth in Energy and Climate, and we have a weekly email newsletter that you can sign up for there, or read through our material there. Folks, this is really important that we change directions. When did our government start bossing us around rather than serving us?
Frank, I appreciate the phone call. I appreciate you being on with us, and it has been a pleasure, and I hope people listen to you and read your work. It's 7:54. We've got news coming up, and, of course, next hour, the Gang of Four Amigos, and much more to cover right here at Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Mandis here for my friends at Cove Generators. Listen, if you've been thinking about getting a backup home standby generator, you've got to call my friends at Cove Generators right now, because they have a great deal waiting just for listeners to my show. Right now, you can get $500 off when you mention my name, Dan Mandis. By the way, they also have great financing options as well. Now, Cove Generators are your premier Generac home standby generator dealer in the state of Tennessee. They're also really helpful. My buddy Generator Dave, he is going to answer whatever questions you may have before, during, and after the purchase as well. Now, remember that great deal, $500 off when you mention my name, Dan Mandis. That is a deal you're not going to find anywhere else but at Cove Generators. So call them. That phone number is 931-559-3311. 931-559-3311. CoveGenerators.com. Call them, get that home standby generator, and never lose power again. 931-559-3311. CoveGenerators.com.